a hilarious surf rock theme where it's just like somebody got stoned and it was like, Leviathan, Leviathan, Leviathan. Welcome everyone to episode 20 of Rhythm Encounter, the RPG fan music podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Meyerink, Taylor's on the boards, and joining me today is my co-host.
That'd be me this time, Caitlin Argyros. Link is there on the boards.
Yes, and also joining us, our co-host.
Still co-host. I'm Mike Salbato, Mike on the boards.
And we have a special episode today, special in that it is about my favorite season. We're calling it Winter Warmer. I'm clever. It's my favorite kind of beer. It's my favorite season. And it fits with Summer Chill. Everybody has to know what a good title this is.
It's pretty good.
Anyway, so we're in the process of putting together our Music of the Year feature. It's gigantic and ambitious and yada, yada, yada. And we didn't want you to wait too long, so we thought we'd try to throw out this awesome little episode in between. But you can look out very soon after the posting of this. We're going to be running our Music Week feature like we did last year. So be sure to stick around for that because there's tons and tons of podcast action coming. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and take a listen to some recent albums, which... Now that we have an RPG fan music staff, and they are awesome, we have so many recent albums to choose from, so I sort of just picked a few out of a hat. I attempted to pick some stuff that was at least a little bit in keeping with our tone today, in that they're sort of chill songs, and then one of them is just sort of a little silly that I picked because I think everyone will get a kick out of hearing it. And to start with, we're going to have Here's to the Future, Outskirts of Time from Sean Shafiansky's Chrono Trigger Jazz Arranged version. And then the silly track is Battle on the Big Bridge, which is from the album Cure SQ, and it's a recorder version of the Final Fantasy V track. So there that is. And then the last track is All Our Might Tonight, this really awesome track that I picked because I like it and stole it from Mike's Music of the Year picks from the Fairy Fencer F soundtrack. So coming up, we've got Here's to the Future, Battle on the Big Bridge, and All Our Might Tonight.
I hit the magic in the wind. It was a story to be told. Learning to play to you, the rest all of mine. In the hour of darkness, without waiting our hands, we are looking for hope together. Take my soul over to hell. Without danger, close at hell. Now you know what to do, my friend. Never looking back at the broken path. Even if there was hope to be saved. In the magic in the wind, it was a story to be said. Learning to pray to get the with all of mine. In the magic in your face, blowing the darkness to its end. Learning to pray to get the with all of mine tonight. In the time of silence, seasons way changing time. We cried the against sky together. Spread away in the true calm. With the power let inside. Now you know what to do, my bestie. Never looking for others. Even if we shall fall to pieces. He's the magic in the wind. It was a story to its end. Learning to pray to get the with all of mine. With the magic in your face, blowing the darkness to its end. Learning to pray to get the with all of mine tonight. You will find the way to tomorrow. Finding the hope in the light. We're gonna make a final fight. Letting the fight, love, blocks the other day. Hit the magic in the wind. It brought the story to its end. Learning to pray to get the way all of mine. With the magic in your face, blowing the darkness to its end. Learning to pray to get the way all of mine tonight.
There's a lot I really like about that Chrono Trigger track. Shafiansky has a firm command of jazz, although I was sort of like, I don't necessarily associate jazz with like the synth that has going on, but I am beyond certain that is jazz, because if Sean put it out and called it jazz, then it's probably jazz. But whatever it is, it's awesome. Like I feel like it really captures what I like about that song. It's sort of like the guitar section in the middle that's a little improv, or, it's not in the original, is just awesome, and it fits into the tone of that song so well.
Yes, I would like to use a word to describe that guitar, but I can't because we're family friendly. Suffice to say, it's awesome.
Awesome's not family friendly.
No,
but the word I'm
can't say
thinking
that
of is...
Awesome used to be used to describe biblical events, but now we've turned it into awesome cake.
Awesome sauce.
Yes.
Awesome cake. Persona 5 looks awesome.
It does. Yeah. It does. Especially when I noticed that the character portraits on the battle screen are them holding up their signs as if they're mug shots.
Oh, also, I like that song, too. I like it's... Maybe it's jazzy because it's kind of, like, laid back. The guitar part aside. But it's got this really nice, like, flow to it.
I concur. So, yeah. Awesome song. Definitely check out that album, Chrono Trigger Jazz Arranged version. We just posted a review of it a couple weeks ago. And the whole album is full of good stuff like that. And, given how prolific Chrono Trigger is, when you get a really good album of tunes like that, you have to sort of take notice, because there's a lot of sort of okay arrangements of Chrono Trigger. Speaking of okay arrangements, all right, well, it's not the best way to introduce this track, but Battle on the Big Bridge from Cure SQ. Recorded music is not something I would have thought Square would have done. However, I find this song oddly pleasant. It's just really amusing to me that they take this like battle theme. It's sort of known for being one of the most intense battle themes in the series, and render it into this like quirky like doot 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 doot. Like I feel like it fits Gilgamesh more than his epic battle theme does.
Oh yeah, it's just strangely adorable.
It's so cute. I just kind of like dancing a little bit around, boop 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 boop, while I'm listening to it. And I think I said this before, but if they ever made a Final Fantasy version of Pikmin, this is the kind of music I would expect to hear.
I'd actually be really curious how that game would play, now that you talk about it.
Using different Final Fantasy characters to explore and remove obstacles and save the Final Fantasy characters!
Throw them at large animals and then maul them. Pikmin is secretly the darkest game I've ever seen. My roommate's been playing the third one, and like that game is basically about animals slaughtering each other.
Pretty much. I mean, you literally just grab all of your helpers and throw them at these big creatures and say, well, good luck. Don't die.
Leap to your doom. Leap to your doom.
What is that a reference?
To the first Power Rangers movie. Leap to your doom.
That's not obscure.
No, it's not obscure, but it's awesome, and I bet everyone forgot about it.
I did.
So, speaking of not obscure and everybody forgot about it, Fairy Fencer F. I don't know how that game turned out. It was supposed to be good. I saw a trailer of it, and it had lots of fan service, and I immediately lost interest. But man, is the music in that game awesome.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about that game's music either. I think it was you that mentioned it to me especially about Disc 2.
Yes.
And so I listened to some of it. I was like, this is good. And then I got to Disc 2, and I was like, where did this come from? Like, there's a lot of really good stuff on that soundtrack. I like this one a lot. This is probably my favorite one.
Yeah, and Nobuo Uematsu's band actually contributed to that album. I don't know that they did the whole thing, but they definitely helped out Yoshitaka Hiroda and Tsutomu Narita and Uematsu. And even Neil wrote in his review of the album that Disc 2 is just crazy good. And I actually really like what he wrote about this track, so I'm going to read it. It's a very brief sentence, but he wrote, "The disc comes out fighting with all our might tonight by Kaoru Hayano, which is easily my favorite vocal theme on this entire soundtrack. When I first heard it in my car, I cranked the volume and was headbanging and waving my fist along to it. It's a song I would play in my head riding my bicycle up a steep hill." That actually makes sense because Neil's an avid cyclist, so it's not as random as it would sound. But that's sort of how I feel about that song too. I'm not often a vocalist person. I like good vocals, but you can take them or leave them. That song just uses them so well with the melody. I feel like it's basically another instrument. And, it really sort of captures that energy that the second disc has really well, which is clear why it was the first track on the album.
Oh, for sure. I mean, of course, now that you chose this one, as you mentioned, I have to change my picks for our next podcast, but, I'm only a little bit bitter.
Hey, I've had to change my picks several times.
Oh, okay. That makes me feel better.
It should make you feel better.
Same here.
If you want to be a Coco host, you have to take all of the responsibility.
Not the co-responsibility?
No, just the Coco responsibility. Speaking of Coco responsibility, Icy Winter Melodies. So, despite the fact that recording this, it is now 64 here in St. Louis. Yesterday, it was like 19, so it would have been appropriate yesterday, and I'm sure it'll get cold again, because if you don't like the weather in St. Louis, how about now? But, so, yeah, the topic here is sort of, it's an easy one, you know, stuff that sounds chill, cold, wintry, anything, you know, Christmassy. There would have been a Kingdom Hearts track in here, the Christmas tune, but I'm saving it for something else.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and get right into the first block of our Icy Winter tunes. And I picked the first track, and it is Naturvolk from Saga Frontier 2, which we've never had in the show. Woo! Go me!
Wow, never?
Never, I don't think.
Wow.
Pretty sure we haven't had Saga.
Shocked.
We've had Saga Frontier, but I don't think we've had 2.
Yeah. Well,
But it's been a while now, so I can't remember. But anyways, Michael, you pick the next one.
Yeah, I picked a song that isn't technically wintry, but I think it still fits with the theme. It's Cabin Music from Sword and Sorcery.
Which we have
And then-
featured, and that's a great album.
Yes. And then Caitlin picked our third track.
Yeah, I was kind of a rebel. I picked Webkier 2 from Okami because I love Okami and I think we should feature its music.
I agree. Okami is an interesting subject on RPGFan because we cover Zelda, we cover 3D Dot Game Heroes, but for some reason Okami is not in our coverage despite basically being the same as Zelda. But we can do our own little rebellion here by featuring its music, which is great, which is why we're going to listen to it. So coming up, we've got Naturvolk from Saga Frontier 2, Cabin Music from Sword and Sorcery, and Webkier 2 from Okami. So I wasn't stunned to know this because I've known it forever, but it's very interesting to me that song, Nature Folk, is actually Masashi Hamauzu. It doesn't sound a whole lot like what he does these days, and you can sort of trace the evolution of his sound if you listen to all the scores he's worked on. But there's nothing scientific or well researched about me making this comment, but I feel like he is a case in which advancing audio technology absolutely affected his sound, because this has a really great early PS1 RPG sound that I love. The piano is great. It's such a friendly. It's hard to articulate. It makes me feel like I'm playing Tales of Destiny or something, because I've never played Saga Frontier 2, so I can't associate it with that. But man, it just gives me this kind of chill, icy feel that I like a lot.
I was also surprised when you said that it was Hamauzu, because I was like, this sounds nothing like Final Fantasy 13 or anything else that he's done recently. But I think it's interesting to sort of hear some of his earlier music and compare it with what's been done recently and what he's sort of kind of exploded onto the scene with because of.
Absolutely. I feel like a lot of his sound now is sort of associated with what he did in Final Fantasy 13, Sigma Harmonics, that he's become a little more known for. I wouldn't venture at throwing adjectives at it, but I feel like it's sort of like Motoi Sakuraba, where you can define his sound when you hear it.
Yeah, not this one. I did not know who composed this. I was really surprised.
Incidentally, I need to play Saga Frontier 2. Why is that on the PlayStation Network?
I don't know. Well, Saga is not really well represented here.
Except in Curtain Call. Woo!
Well, that's true.
Yeah, great song. Another great song, Cabin Music. That song reminds me of Phantasy Star 4, the Ice Planet Deseris theme, so much. I don't know why. The whole Sword and Sorcery soundtrack just has this sort of very cool, chill sound to it. I played from the Scythian Steppes, one of my favorite tracks, on an episode a while back. I think I actually played it on the Summer Chill episode. And, I don't know if it's like the open soundscape. I don't know. It feels like there's a lot of space in the audio in that soundtrack between the different tones that you hear. And for whatever reason, that really definitely gives me like an icy vibe. I think Caitlin agreed on that one too.
Oh, definitely. I think the reverb that they're using really helps create the idea of like you're in this ice. Yeah, you're in an ice cavern, or you're playing music on ice or something like that. So I love that about this piece.
Most definitely.
See, that's interesting because I don't think of that. Did you play the game, Caitlin? Like, have you seen where this plays in the game? Okay.
No, I haven't. I have. Funny story. I have this on my iPad, and I've never played it. It was like a free download promotion thing, and I just haven't gotten around to it.
Oh, you totally should. Like, it's like an afternoon game when you're done, but it's a really cool little experience. But yeah, in the game, there's like this main little, like tiny little cabin with I think there's a fire going, but that's where it plays. So it's interesting that not knowing the game, you picture like this icy place, and I picture a little cabin in like a mountains or something, because that's what it is. But
well, mountains can be cold.
That's true.
And they frequently are.
I don't know. I listen to it, and I pretty much just want to like sit down with like a hot cocoa.
I would do that, but again, 64 degrees out, so.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not right now, because it's like 70 something here. I'm just like listening to this. Don't get smart with me.
I can't get smart with anybody. Aww. So I've only ever played the intro to Okami, and it's one of those things that I want to play someday, especially now that it's got an HD version. Holy crap, that song was great. Although I will say, I get more of a warm autumn vibe from that song than a winter vibe.
Really?
It's an awesome song, but I felt that song had a sort of a warm tone to it.
It's interesting because I love the introduction of this piece. It's so simple, and it kind of creates this idea feel to me of solitude, and then the beat comes in and it picks up. But it plays near the end of the game. You're in the part of old Japan that is now Hokkaido. So it's this snowed-in village, and there's snow everywhere. And I don't know. To me, it perfectly fits that area. But definitely, trust me, it's a snowy area. There's lots of snow. I am a huge Okami fan. This is why I was willing to be a rebel, cheat a little bit to get this in here, because I feel like this music is so beautiful. I love all of the traditional Japanese instruments that you can hear. throughout the soundtrack, not just this piece. I thought that was a really great touch. And this is one of my favorite tracks in the game, simply because everything about it, the melody is so pretty. I love how it starts simple. You know me, I like stuff that starts simple and then builds, and this kind of does that.
Yeah. I guess I should go back and finish this game, huh?
Yes, you should. I know, I've had a lot of people that have said that they couldn't finish Okami. It is surprisingly a long game. You think you get to the end of the game about halfway through, and then you're like, wait, there's more? But it's totally worth it, especially when you get to the end of the game. The payoffs with all the people that you've met throughout the game, it's a beautiful moment. So finish it, and Steven, play it.
Well, I think I need to get... Wait, what did it come out on? PS2 first?
It was originally on PS2. There's a Wii version as well, and then they did the HD version for PS3.
Well, once I have a PS3 that works again, I'll probably get that one.
Aww.
Well, if we're lucky, maybe sometime in the future, maybe it'll get ported to Vita. Please, I'm crossing my fingers so hard right now.
Capcom, please do that. That would be great. Make a cross-buy even. That would be cool. No.
Yes.
That would be a little too customer-friendly for Capcom, but, maybe.
We can dream.
So moving on to our next block, we're bringing in a little classic here. This is something that I will perennially associate with snow. Mike, you have the first pick.
Yeah, I picked Buried in the Snow from Final Fantasy VII, which is probably a really obvious pick, but I don't care because I really love this song.
I always think of it as, my girlfriend just died. Let's go snowboarding.
Oh, man, right to the feels.
That is, okay, now I'm going to be sad when I hear the song.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. Speaking of sad and horrible segues, Caitlin has our next pick.
I don't think it's sad. Well,
I
actually,
had the monopoly on terrible segues.
I just want to be like you, okay?
It is kind of sad, I guess, when I think about it. I picked the Streets of Whiterun from Elder Scrolls V Skyrim.
We do this for you, Angelo. No, seriously, though, that song is amazing. Speaking of amazing, I have a song from an album that is sort of just out from one of my favorite games. This is from, I guess when it comes out in English, it'll be Etrian Odyssey Untold 2, The Night of Fafnir. And this is Woodlands of Frozen Flowers, which was a song I absolutely loved in the original Etrian Odyssey 2, and the new version of it is just gorgeous. I'm actually not such a big fan of the Etrian Odyssey Untold 2 soundtrack, because I feel like a lot of the impact and punch that the original had in the FM sound is sort of lost. But we can talk about that after. But this song is amazing. So let's go ahead and take a listen to Buried in the Snow, Streets of Whiterun, and Woodlands of Frozen Flowers. You know, this Final Fantasy VII song just makes me feel like a kid, and probably because 7's one of the first major RPGs I played. Certainly the first RPG on PlayStation. You know, I played Phantasy Star and I played Shining Force on Genesis, but, you know, the PlayStation is where I really sort of hit my stride as a person obsessed with RPGs, and FF7 certainly is a major reason for that. And, you know, maybe it's my nostalgia, or maybe it's the song itself, but there's like this cinematic style to this, and I jokingly pointed out that, you know, the tonal sort of inconsistency of, hey, your girlfriend just died, go snowboarding. But I actually, you know, and again, maybe this is just because of how I felt when I played it, but as I'm wandering this area, like getting that elixir in the bag in the north part of the caves and the mountains and stuff, I feel like this song does sort of reflect that, like, sadness and, like, the isolation of having recently lost a friend but being forced to move on. Because, you know, they do. You know, it's like, Eris is dead, but we have to keep going. And I feel like this really captures that sort of the mindset that those characters would have been in.
Huh. Yeah, that thought occurred to me too, because my reaction was sort of like yours, but in a very tragic, oh, how could they kind of vein. Because yeah, that was one of my first RPGs, and my first Final Fantasy was 7, and I think it was the first game I played where a major character tragically died like that, and that kind of affected me for going forward. And I remember being kind of depressed at this point in the game because I hadn't quite dealt with her death yet, and I was kind of like, well, why do we have to be here in this super awesome snowy place and with this kind of happy sounding music? But then you're right, it is kind of interesting to have, it sounds at first glance like it's happy snow music, but that sort of juxtaposition of a major traumatic event, a major death with this kind of music, it does create sort of an interesting feel to it, of having to move on and not quite being happy about it, but having to trudge through it anyway.
Yeah, hence buried in the snow.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're burying their sorrows in the snow.
Well, it's very good insight. I don't have any good insight, so I'm just going to compliment you guys.
We're so insightful.
So, Streets of Whiterun, the song is so good it's almost ridiculous. Like, Skyrim, I have an interesting relationship with Jeremy Soul's music. I think it's good, you know, yada, 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 but I feel like it's very forgettable. Skyrim, though, just, I don't know what it is with Skyrim, but there's a lot of good music in Skyrim, and this one in particular, I guess I sort of just spaced and never realized how good it was, but just the piano and the violin, and it's melancholy, but not in a, like, depressing way, but more in a, like, the middle of winter and you're snowed in kind of way. And what I found interesting is that unlike a lot of the other songs we've been listening to so far and will listen to, where icy songs sort of have this open, very, like, spacey soundscape where, you know, there's a lot of auditory space between the different sounds, this is a really full song. Like, there's not a lot of silence or, like, simplicity to it. It's very, it's rich. And I think it's interesting that it still conveys that isolated, icy feeling, but in a different way.
Yeah, so this is my first, when I think of Skyrim's soundtrack, this is the track I think of first, but the entire soundtrack to me just kind of reads winter and isolation. And it's fitting, of course, based on where Skyrim is in the world of the lore of the series. But this track in particular stands out so much. The main melody is so hauntingly beautiful. And I love how...
is a good word for it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, it does kind of sound a little melancholy, but the way the different parts of the song work and the way it just keeps building and getting a little bit more and more with each repetition of that theme does kind of create the sense of, well, okay, maybe things are bad, but I can keep going. There's a light at the end of this snowed-in tunnel that I found myself in. And it's so... Another thing I like about this is it kind of dies midway through the track, and it sounds like that's it, that we're done. And then it builds back up a little bit, and it's almost like a winter breeze or maybe a snowstorm or snow flurries that you think are going away. But no, we're coming back. There's still a little bit more to hear and to enjoy.
Yeah, it's diverse is not the word I'm looking for, but it's a song where there's like almost a narrative to it, and again, that's interesting because of Skyrim sort of being a lot of like sort of latent narrative. I feel like this song does suit Skyrim quite well. It makes me want to play the game, which that's impressive because not a lot of things make me want to play Skyrim. I'm like the only person in history who doesn't hate, it just has no interest in playing Skyrim again.
Well, I haven't played it at all, so I think you're still ahead of me.
I played it for 30 hours and really liked it, and I'll never play it again.
Oh, okay.
It's worth experiencing.
Yeah, it's very pretty. It's just, after a while, it's basically, what color beam do you want to kill your enemies with? But don't worry, you can be really good with the red, the blue, and the yellow beam.
Forget about swords and bows, too.
Well, even swords and bows, like the way they balance the game is such that it's like, there's no functional difference to any weapon. It's just, what do you want to kill them with? And then eventually you can kill them with everything, because you can become good at everything. But I digress. So the Etrian Odyssey track, I talked a little bit about, I love the FM sound of Etrian Odyssey 2 and 3. Those are my two favorite soundtracks in the series. And, the Etrian Odyssey Untold 1 soundtrack is awesome. And something about Etrian Odyssey 2's, the way the music is now done with real instruments instead of FM sound, something about it just doesn't capture the same impact that I got from the old, like, bassy, Genesis-sounding FM Yuzo Koshiro type thing. And, like, for example, Scarlet Rain, one of my favorite boss themes from the game, is sort of really subdued in the new version, and I really don't care for it. But this song maybe it's because this is more ambiance and like a dungeon theme, could be like the tone of the song, but for whatever reason, this song is just perfect. I love the icy piano notes. In my head, it sounds like icicles twinkling or something. The saxophone at the beginning is like, I always associate the sax with like a warm tone, but because of the way it's used here, it's sort of, it's chill in a temperate sense and in a emotional sense, but awesome song. I love it.
Yeah, I also I heard the elements that make it sound like a winter piece juxtaposed against some of these other elements. The swing kind of beat to the song honestly makes me think of like, I don't know, Costa del Sol or something, like a tropical island or a resort palace or something like that. But then there are elements like the piano and some of the chimes later in the track that kind of, oh yeah, this is definitely still winter.
It actually makes me think of like a jazz club.
Yes.
Like I'd want to sit in a jazz club and sip a gin and tonic. And, originally I was going to say...
That's my metaphor.
Well, I was going to, like last night, I would have literally been drinking a gin and tonic if we recorded this when we planned to, but I'm not going to drink a gin and tonic at 2 in the afternoon because I'm not that horrible.
It's almost 5 o'clock here.
Oh, that's true. Let me go get one.
So yeah, great song, and it's a game I'm definitely looking forward to, although I will say I'm more looking forward to Etrian Odyssey Untold 3, which is not announced, but I'm sure it's in development, because why not? That's my favorite game in the series. But awesome tune there. Very chill. So we got another block coming up. Caitlin, you are taking it off. So
yes.
Wow, that is a terrible way of phrasing that. That is an awful way of phrasing that.
Take it all off.
You are going to take off as in the spaceship is taking off. Oh my god.
Okay, no, you can't salvage it.
Kick off, maybe?
Caitlin is kicking it off.
Okay.
No, because that doesn't work, team. Kick off your shoes. Well, that's fine. Kick off your shoes and this next block, please, Caitlin. Wow,
okay. So I picked White Skies. This is a remix of People of the Far North. This is from the Project Majestic Mix trance album. And I can't say anything about it other than that it's awesome, because that one word says it all, I think.
That is a good metric by which we put music on the show. Mm-hmm. Speaking of awesome, I took a gimme. I did not use the more recent Square Enix Christmas collections because I actually didn't like it that much, the one that was exclusively Bravely Default. And I think Bravely Default lends itself well to that, but this track in particular is probably one of my favorite Christmas tunes they've ever done. And this is Wind Scene from Chrono Trigger from the earlier Christmas collections Square Enix album. And then, Mike, our final track of this block.
You and I kind of do a similar thing in that I try not to pick a lot of songs from my favorite couple games. So I intentionally don't just throw Final Fantasy VI in like every episode, even though I want to. but I had to use it here. So this is actually the opening theme from Final Fantasy VI.
This is kind of a gimme, but it's a gimme that probably should be here, right?
It's a
Exactly.
classic.
It's a classic, and it's definitely snowy. In fact, we played this when we first got our Magitech armor in Final Fantasy XIV, and we walked around Korthus.
Yep.
Excellent.
Good times.
Good times indeed. Let the good times continue onward with White Skies from Final Fantasy X, Wind Scene from Chrono Trigger, and opening theme from Final Fantasy VI.
People of the Far North, the track this is a remix of, is my absolute favorite track on the 10 soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of awesome stuff that Hamozu's done. And I remember I was in Japan my junior year of college, and a friend of mine got this album and shared it with me. And this was absolutely the track that made the album for me, because it was just like, wow, that is an awesome trance remix of an already awesome track. I mean, the original is so beautiful in how it starts off with the percussion and the melody, and you're not quite sure what it's supposed to sound like, and then the bass comes in, and you're like, okay, I get it now. The strings are great about creating this feeling of you really are on this snow peak mountain, and the refrain is just such a beautiful piece of music. And then this remix is great about picking out all those different parts of the original that work so well and having elements of them while still making it a remix and changing things up a little bit. Like how the drums are still there at the beginning, and when the refrain first comes in, it sort of, the beat dies away and you just hear the music. It's such an amazing piece of music.
Yeah, absolutely. The violin in the background actually reminds me of like a trancey Chrono Cross. This is also one of my favorite Final Fantasy X songs. And I remember you played this on like your iPod when we were hanging out one day, and I was like, what the hell is that? Why is that so good? Ah! And, I cannot find this album anywhere, and that is sad, because it reminds me of an album I heard back in the early 2000s called Preludio, which I guess is also like a Dojin album like this, and I just don't know where they went. They're just gone. Yeah,
they, Project Majestic Mix, they were really great. They had a couple of different albums that were remixes of not just Square music. The trance album that this is from has a bunch of different music from like Donkey Kong Country and Xenogears, really good remixes. And I'm not sure what happened to them. And it's unfortunate, because I would have loved to hear more, but I'd love to introduce people to what they have done, at least, because this is excellent remix music.
I like it because it's so very different from the original. I mean, like, you can still tell what song it is, but it's just such a different vibe than the original one. And I'm actually surprised I like it as much as I do, because like trance stuff doesn't usually work for me.
You don't usually work for me.
I don't work for you, actually.
That's true.
Except right now. I'm sorry.
That's an accurate statement. You're not working for me right now.
Anyway, yeah. So that's part of what I like about that. And actually, that's part of what I like about the next song too.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of comments on Wind Scene. It's a classic song from Chrono Trigger. I love that song. That's my second favorite time period in that game. I hear that song and all I can think of is that like cloudy overlay in 600 AD. And so it's already this sort of somber song, but I never really associate it with like cold vibes. But the way they've mixed this, and you pointed out, Caitlin, that you didn't actually think it sounded very Christmassy, and I agree with you. Because that's sort of what I didn't like about the Bravely Default Christmas album, was that it was like, let's just throw tons of sleigh bells into Bravely Default, which admittedly Bravely Default already used sleigh bells, so maybe that's why. But it was just too much. It wasn't something that I'd want to listen to, because it was like, all right, this is novelty, but it's not something I can listen to. Whereas this, it has a very cold, wintry type vibe to it. There are those sleigh bells in the background, but they're understated. What takes front and center here is an arrangement of the melody, which is, I think, the strength of this song, and why it pulls off the fusion of this song that I didn't associate with Cold, with, my favorite season and my favorite holiday, other than Halloween, which we already did an episode on, so suck it.
Yes.
Yeah, you said what I said. That doesn't, to me, feel so much like a wintry song, but it is still kind of, it's fun to hear this classic piece and have it reworked like that. I love the violin work in particular in this track. And I actually wasn't expecting the beat, but it's still a fun beat, even if to me it doesn't really read winter.
I think it's kind of cozy, even if not wintry exactly. It's definitely more, I don't know, is cozy a good word? Or welcoming, cheerful? I don't know. It's a different, yeah, but compared to the original song, where again you hear that song and you think of like gloom and like fog everywhere. This one's a little, I don't know, more cheerful and not overly, sleigh belly.
Yeah, definitely, I agree.
I need some more Sleigh Bell.
Sleigh Bell is Yasunori Mitsuda's label, so we do need more Sleigh Bell. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
That is true.
Last track, Final Fantasy VI is a classic. It's obvious. I love the sound font in that game. I don't especially get a winter vibe from this song. It's a little more overture-esque to me. The second half, of course, I think winter, but part of me thinks it's more because I've just recognized that iconic intro in the Mode 7 scrolling with them tromping along in the snow. But, I can see where the impression comes from that, so I get why you got there. I guess for me, I just don't see it as wintry. That said, it is an awesome song, and it's one of the most iconic scenes I can think of from any RPG. And I would wager that people would agree with me on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, that is what I was choosing, was the second half of the song. I was actually going to pick the official, like, Terra's theme track, the map music, and then I realized how different it was. But I specifically wanted the intro one. So ignore the first half. Just listen to the second half. That's the winter thing. And yeah, again, maybe it is just because I know the scene that it goes with. But that intro of them, walking into the town is just so... Did someone say iconic already? Because I was going to say iconic.
I did, but it is. I mean, that's one of those scenes, like the Final Fantasy VII intro, or the Final Fantasy VII intro. No, but seriously, it's great, and I agree. The second half is more wintry than the first.
Even though it really has nothing to do with winter, but what I really like about that scene is that, and I wrote this in my notes and then promptly lost it, but I think that was the first real indication that Square wanted to go like really cinematic with their games. Unless Final Fantasy V had something that I don't know about, but it was very, very different.
I mean, I think from 4 to 5 to 6, you get a sort of a more cinematic thing going on. I mean, 4 and 5 are both sort of... 5 is more of a road story, whereas 4 is more of like we're going to save the world and stop the evil empire type thing. Whereas 6 is really hard to pin down. Like Final Fantasy 6 isn't really... It's more of a war story for most of it. But yeah, great game, great song. Moving on to our final block of the day. This is our last block before Music of the Year, and I might have said that last time, and if I did, I was lying. But this is our last block before Music of the Year, so we got to make it good. So I am going to feature my track as the first pick. It is from a game we've never featured. It's also Yuzo Koshiro. This is Daiba the Freezing Village from 7th Dragon 2020. I had it recommended to me by our buddy Don Kotowski. And 7th Dragon and 7th Dragon 2020 have a great soundtrack. They're very similar to Etrian Odyssey. They're, first-person dungeon crawlers. And this song is just perfectly captures the essence of this episode's tone. And so that's why I picked it. Michael, you picked the second track.
Yeah, I chose A Wish from Secret of Mana.
A Wish. ...
Yes. But this is the song that plays in the Ice Country area, which anyone who's played that game and spent as much time as I did leveling up there is probably really familiar with this song.
Oh, speaking of ... if you ever want to laugh really hard, go to Google Translate and then put it in Japanese, and then type in a bunch of periods and then a bunch of dollar signs and then dots and just alternate and then have it play it, and it'll be really funny because it's like dodo 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 dodo, and she sounds like she's rapping.
Wow. So
All
Caitlin
right.
has our third song.
Yes. This doesn't have an official name yet, as far as I know, but this plays during the first half of the primal fight with Shiva in the, not the latest patch, a couple patches back, Dreams of Ice.
And it's very icy. I
Yes.
just did this fight for the first time a few days ago, and it was really cool. But anyways, for our final block, we've got Daiba, the Freezing Village, A Wish, ... and the first half of Shiva's battle theme from Final Fantasy XIV, A Realm Reborn. I like about Seventh Dragon 2020, which is sort of the original Seventh Dragon, if I recall correctly, is like a little medieval, and 2020 takes place in like modern Tokyo, and so the soundtrack melds this modern feel with like these high-tech sounds with a more Etrian Odyssey-esque sort of fantasy type sound, and I really like it. I feel like, again, it's probably a common thread throughout this whole episode, but I don't know if you call it a piano, whatever that main instrument is, that doo-doo, just really, really captures this chilly sound for me, but in a more high-tech modern way. And I don't know that you get a whole lot of modern, high-tech vibed snowy tracks. Because usually it's like, it's a frozen forest or it's a frozen cave. This is like, frozen city block, and that's cool.
Yeah, I love how this track starts off with just like I'm not sure what we call it. It's some sort of synth chime, electric piano, not quite sure. And I think it's just going to be kind of like that the whole way through. And then the techno and the beat comes in, and then suddenly I'm like, wow, where's the party? I want to dance. I'm just dancing to a Winter Track song. And I'm so confused.
You danced at MagFest. Badly.
Thank God there's no video to show people how badly.
So sad I missed that. Anyway, yeah, that's what I like about it too. It's one of those things it's not what I expected, I guess.
Yeah, it's a game we never got here, and I sort of wish we had, because again, I love Etrian Odyssey, and I like the idea of this sort of high-tech one, or rather a modern one, because there aren't a whole lot of modern dungeon crawlers as far as I know. I think Unchained Blades is one. I can't remember. But in any case, this whole soundtrack is great, so if you liked the song, you should definitely seek out more of it. But this one in particular is just, when you get like to the halfway point and there's like that guitar and it's like do 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 do, and like it's just got this really cool forward motion to it that is so uncharacteristic of a lot of wintry type songs, but absolutely fits into that same genre. I have a wish, and I wish Michael would describe his song.
Cold and lonely, and also really short. I kind of wish that song wasn't only a minute long, but
I think most of that soundtrack is pretty brief.
It is. It's definitely not. We've had some pretty interesting, like, upbeat songs, and I know that one really is not. This is probably the song you would expect to hear in Icicle Inn.
But it's still pretty.
It is. Yeah. It's really pretty, but I definitely get like a sense of like kind of like loneliness. Like, I'm going to freeze to death out here fighting these wolves for 7 hours at a time. But it's still wintry.
And for me, I get such a strong Hiroki Kikuta vibe from this. Like, it has such a distinct sound, and he's a little less prolific now, but I've always loved this. It's really hard for me to articulate, but it's peaceful. Secret of Mana has this like peaceful but very interesting sound that's so different from what Shimomura and Uematsu were doing on Super Nintendo, and Mitsuda, like all of his quote unquote contemporaries. I feel like there's just a really unique sound that Kikuta captures. And in this song in particular, you're right. It's very, it's got that icy thing going on. And, it has that reverb, which I think that was a good thing to point out, Caitlin. The reverb really does give me a chilly vibe. And I think, maybe it's because you imagine the sound is like reverberating off cold walls or something. I don't know. But in any case, this is a great song, and it's brief, but I think, it fits really well into the whole canon of Secret of Mana type stuff, and it gave me a platform to talk about how much I like Kikuta's music.
So a win-win.
Yeah.
Well, it's also a win-win.
My first battle with Shiva?
Yes. Well, and the music, too, because let's talk about how amazing this song is.
So this theme is actually my favorite Primal theme in the entire game.
Yes.
Fallen Angel I've always thought was pretty good. Titan's theme is cool, not something I listen to outside of the game, but great for fighting Titan. I think Ifrit's theme is sort of bland. Rama has a cool theme. Leviathan has a hilarious surf rock theme where it's just like somebody got stoned and was like, Leviathan, Leviathan, Leviathan. Whereas I feel like there's a lot of, I don't know, Shiva is an elder primal, and her storyline is much more interesting, I think, than the three primals that she follows. Mogomog is funny, but all of the primal storylines boil down to someone's summoning a primal and we got to stop them. Oh, we didn't stop them. Let's kill the primal. Whereas with Shiva, there's more political plot around it, and it's sort of the reasons for summoning Shiva are really interesting. And, they make a bigger deal out of her being summoned. The other primals are like, yeah, we have to stop this because it's a giant monster and they're bad. But Shiva is the one that's presented more as a bigger threat for a lot of reasons narratively. And there's a lot of like political machinations behind everything. And, I feel like you get this really dramatic introduction, like a hunt of finding where Shiva is when you finally find it. And like you get the summoning sequence and it's so cool. And the battle is like, the battlefield is the coolest battlefield by far of any of the primal fights because you're like in this arena, you're in an amphitheater, and as you're fighting her, it freezes solid, and then you get to the second half of the fight, and like there's ice spires everywhere. It's just totally awesome. And this song, it sort of captures the drama, but also it has that sort of isolated, chilly feel to it as well, which suits it because again, you're in this place that is basically untraversable, and like the whole plot line of that storyline is how the heck are we going to get here? And you get there and it's just the piano and everything and the reverb and just it's great. I actually love the second half of the fight as well, but this one's a little icier.
Yeah, I like Oblivion, the vocal piece, the rock piece that plays after the halfway part of the fight too. But there's something about the strings in this first piece. I love how there's very minimal percussion and it's mostly just these massive strings creating the beat and the forward motion of the song. And when the piano comes in and starts to play the melody, the two different parts where it's playing different melodies from the song, and it's just like, this is a really, I can't say it, it's a kick butt song. You know what I want to say?
Yeah.
It's a kick-ass song. You can say ass.
It's kick-ass.
It's, and I really like that dun 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 dun. Like it's so with like the female choir vocals in the background. It reminds me of like the singing from Awakening in Xenogears. I really love the use of vocals and just all the sounds. And
I think I might like it as much as the other one. It just obviously for really different reasons.
Like this one, the primal fights are, these big moments in the storyline. And as fun as they are, for me, they were getting to be a sort of like almost trite where it's like, oh, I wonder what silly reason we're going to have for fighting a primal this time. So I like that they went out of their way to make a bigger arc for Shiva being an important primal and for being one of the most iconic ones. Like Ramu's iconic. The Magomag is awesome.
Yeah.
And, Leviathan and all that. But I feel like Shiva is one of the main... when I think Final Fantasy summons, I almost immediately jump to Ifrit and Shiva.
Right.
And, I like that they gave this amount of gravitas to the song and to the storyline. And that could be why I like the song so much, because I was more hooked into the plot line. But, awesome song.
I like the piano. I think that's my favorite.
It is.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Like the really echoey piano.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're playing the piano in the Akafa Amphitheater.
Yeah. I think that's what really sells it for me.
Yeah, like that whole sequence is one of the best things they've done. Well, I think that does us for our wintry themes episode. I've wanted to do this for a while, ever since we did the summer episode, and we were going to do it last year, but we got sidetracked with Music of the Year. But, we pulled it off this year, so good work, team.
Yay, high five, everyone.
And, it's, again, I like doing these sort of themed episodes because it's not like, let's pick battle themes. That's not fun. But it's always fun to see what pops up in everyone's head for different kinds of sounds. Because, there's all those studies that say, like, certain cultures, hear the Psycho theme and don't think it's terrifying because that's what their music sounds like. And, it's interesting to hear what the three of us think of as icy stuff. And even within here, there were a few that I didn't get an ice vibe from. And I think, like you said, Caitlin, there were a couple of mine that you also didn't get a snowy vibe from. So it's cool how you get that sort of difference, but also, like, you can sort of put your brain in and figure out why you would get, like, a wintry, snowy vibe from that. And I think we've narrowed it down to piano and reverb.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So speaking of things that have lots of reverb, but I don't think any piano, Caitlin, you picked we're going to call it the bonus track because we don't have a guest today.
Yes, so on the spot a little bit, I went back to one of my standbys, Mass Effect. This is Noveria from Mass Effect, the first one, the original one, the best one as far as some people are concerned. This is really interesting. Noveria, of course, is this icy, frozen planet that you go to, and on top of that, there's a blizzard happening, and when you get there, you can see out the windows how snowed over it is, and this track, it doesn't do it like in the way you'd expect, because it's Mass Effect, and there's a lot of, sort of old sci-fi kind of techno vibes in the soundtrack, and you've got that here, But you also have the strings coming through and the percussion kind of constantly going in the background, sort of, I think, helps create that sense of, yeah, we're in a pretty cold place and it looks pretty frigid out there. And it's interesting, in the game, it loops a couple of different ways before coming back to like the one that you hear when you first get there. Like it takes out the percussion, and then maybe one time all you're hearing is the strings, and another time it's just the synths in the background. I thought that was kind of interesting how they did that to sort of expand the track and have different parts shine at different times. So you don't get it when you hear it on the soundtrack, which is unfortunate, but you're getting it now.
And so that pretty much wraps us up. As always, thank you everyone for listening to the show. It's always fun to chat with everyone and see what you think of things. It's great when you get on Twitter and hit us up and tell us, like, even when you hear a cool song, you're just like, oh my god, this song is great, at SJM Taylor's. I like it when you do that. That's fun, because that's pretty much what I do. And, you know, it gives me ideas. It lets me, you know, see music that I wouldn't have seen necessarily, and surely with everybody else. You know, so keep that up. And we are just about done with Music of the Year stuff. All of our features are out, and we're putting everything together. We have one last segment to record, basically, and we'll be putting everything together. So you'll see that in the next couple of weeks. It's going to be set up similar to last year with a week-long feature. We're going to have all kinds of good stuff. We have tons of super rad guests, tons and tons of music. I may just name the show the Persona Q show, but we'll see. I think everybody had a Persona Q pick. I think we may have played the whole soundtrack at this point. I don't know. But fortunately,
it's not a bad
music.
thing.
No, it's great music, so that's okay. And there's plenty of diversity within there, too. But anyways, stay tuned for that. Thank you for listening to the first episode of 2015. And taking us out is Caitlin's bonus track, Novaria, from Mass Effect.